Hello everyone. Today's your friendly neighborhood queer Christian. And so yay, you just had the inauguration of Biden and Harris, right? And already you could just feel like, ooh, a little lightness, right? We can all just take a general sigh, right? We have gotten through those last 4 years, right? And so now people are sort of shocked by, oh my God, what a normal press conference, a national plan to distribute vaccine. Madness, right? That's because what it sort of feels like after these last 4 years, right? Amen. So it's definitely a good day, and it's definitely a much more hopeful day. But I think it's like anything that God sort of takes us through. I think there was a lesson. I think it's a couple of lessons in the last 4 years. And the lesson I want to focus on today, I wish it was my original idea. It was not. I was reading something on social media. It was actually probably like a year ago. And this man had posted, I can't remember what it was in a reference to, but basically, it suffices to say, I wish I could remember his name. He had posted, if there's anything to learn from the Trump presidency, is love your children. And I thought about that for a while. And that's what I sort of want to discuss today. And I know that's probably a little bit of a weird sort of juxtaposition or sort of a segue into why that from the Trump presidency, right? And I'm not so much talking about love your children in terms of protecting them or, like healthcare and stuff. I'm not speaking about that. What I really mean is the importance of what it means to love your children. And I would love to go back to and we think about January 6th and we think about the people who were storming that Capitol. If we can think about Ted Cruz and Hawley and even outside of them. I mean, but they're sort of the focus. If we can think about, Trump, right? I remember watching Pence at the inauguration and I was telling my sister, I was like, I know I shouldn't, but I really sort of felt sorry as watching him walking to that van. Again, I'm not saying that all these people do not hold responsibility. They're culpable. They were part of encouraging bad behavior. They were part of encouraging corruption and lies and feeding people lies. So, always, there's the rod and the discipline, right? So I'm not trying to deny the accountability they are due. But I couldn't help but also feel like, so in these last days of trying to sort of right the wrongs and just sort of seeing this man just sort of like what could have been a moment of triumph or, a moment of pride of what, serving a country for 4 years. It was just more of like looking at this man who, like my sister said, he looked like a broken man, right? I mean, wealthy. I mean, he lives a much more comfortable life than me. So, I'm not crazy. Okay. But, but just sort of like what could have been and what was. And so it takes me back to, again, the importance of loving your children. And I say this because I just want us to take a minute and think about, can you imagine what it was like when Donald Trump was a child? He's running or like he's going up to his parent and he had a boo-boo or he had an idea or he wanted to play or he wanted to share. And think about what could have been the interaction to sort of create a man who needed that, even though he was the president of the United States, that was not enough to suffice that endless ego. Like that wasn't enough. And you just think about what could create that, right? Let's go to someone even more extreme. It was very extreme, right? Think of someone like Adolf Hitler, right? You think about him as a child, and do you think that he was like loved and coddled? Do you think when he had a boo-boo, someone was there like saying it was okay? When he did something wrong, someone says that, don't worry, you're more than enough, right? And it can sound very, like, I'm being a little woo-woo. It may be so, but to just think about what were they like as children? What were they like in their most vulnerable moments? What was it like when they saw monsters under the bed? What was it like when they were confused? What was it like when things were hard, right? Of coming up during a time where there was, like if you think about other people in history who may have come up in times where there were food insecurities, right? What was it like? What was that situation like with them? What were they told, right? If you always want to see where someone is, you see where they began. And it comes back to that. That's why I think that what that man said was so, I don't want to say just prophetic, but it was so profound, because it is the importance of loving your children. Everything starts from there. They say from the age of when we're 3 that is a time from 3, under 5 is when the biggest imprints are made on our mind. And if you think about any person, even like my friend Sophia sort of pointed out, who's also part of the prayer chat, she was like, you think of Marvel heroes, Marvel comics, whenever there's someone lacking, they always point to someone in some way in their childhood, right? Even like Batman, it was like his I think his parents were killed, right? So if you think about anybody who's in history, the moment of, like, even you think about when you saw the film Malcolm X, and they point to the what happened to his father and the effect that had on his mother. They sort of cover over the fact that she had mental health issues, right? So afterwards, and so they, all these sort of things, when people, there's something someone is seeking, you can always look back to their childhood. Now, that doesn't mean all parents are like children who've grown up. It's not a parent's job to be supernatural. But it also shows you the sort of what begets, right? And if you want strong children, you have to have strong parents. And if you want strong parents, you have to have strong children. The two go together. And that when you see someone who is there was a woman who is a woman of faith, and she works with prisoners. And I think that the number is like, I don't know, it's astronomical. It's like 80, 85 or 90% of prisoners are people who've experienced sexual abuse. What happens to us as children affects us as an adult. And in some ways, even more importantly, those children who become adults affect the community around them. And so you can never get around the fact of something as simple as loving your children. There's a blog called Gentle Parent Christians, and there's a quote that I love. I wish I had thought of it, but it's their quote, and I love it. And it says, "Unconditional love is acting loving even when you don't feel it." Right? And sometimes when you're a parent, every day is not happiness. Okay? Every day you're not looking at these children like, yes, this is the fruit of my womb. Yay. Sometimes you're thinking, if I could just get them out that window, right? It happens. We are human. We are fallible. But the importance of consistency, the importance of stability, that's why it's so important for us to have self-love, because it's not just new agey. It's not just for personal development. It's for the health of our country. It's for the health of our world. The beauty of what God has created is everything affects everything else, right? Like the plants put out oxygen and we take in oxygen. Everything in this earth has a practical purpose. And then the importance of loving our children. I just want to read here in Proverbs 22:6. Train a child up in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. Of course, we know the disciples were always male-centric, but this goes for men and women. Okay, so we're just gonna, but the importance of that, training up our children, and and you think about the disciples, right? When the children were coming up over to him and they were trying to rebuke it, and he was like, "No, let this children come over to me," right? And they were arguing about who was going to be the greatest, and he takes a child, says, "This child right here is the greatest of us all, because we want to look for the greatest who's among us is the least among us," right? Because one begets the other. You cherish and understand a child, you're going to have a powerful adult, and that powerful adult will create powerful change. It just follows. It is just the movement of how it goes. You see any person who has done great things, and they will always point you back to a great parent. It is an important role. It's not a role that I have, but it's a role that many people have. And I say to you, and understand, even though as a Christian, I am vehemently pro-choice, vehemently. But if you decide to have children, if you're going to step into that responsibility, understand what that responsibility does. Because when you don't, it helps to create a person like Donald Trump. And it's not to just fear people, but to understand the importance of something as simple as caring for our children. Is when you think about someone, because everyone knows I'm no more fan of President Obama in the whole wide world. And what he always points out is his mother and also his grandparents, and particularly his grandmother. Sometimes all it takes is one person. And I, adore that woman, because what? She created that man. And I'm like, I'm loving on you, lady. Okay? I'm loving on you. And that is what is the importance of, is that we think of teachers, the importance of teachers in classrooms is what create great, is what helps to create, not the only thing, but helps to mold great minds. And what helps to create great teachers? Great parents. It never stops. It's always part of the same thing. It is a cycle of life. And so that's what I really want to leave us with today. Again, a little bit of an unconventional message. But again, as we think of, one of the words of Jesus is like, if you do not come into the kingdom, like with the joy of a child, then you really can't be in the kingdom, right? And when we want to create joy and want to see joy, and children, I mean, this is of course young children, but even as we become adults, as we're always children of God, right? We always want to understand, we always want to have that sense of joy in us. And that's why it's so important, when you can show the love to the least among us, the little among us, then you can show joy to the world. Amen. Prayer chat will be tomorrow. The information will be above or below if we don't see you. I hope I will see you on this video watching me next week. All right, everyone, have a wonderful week and happy Inauguration Day.